One livestream, one fatal mistake. In mere seconds, ordinary content became a horrifying tragedy, captured for the world to see. There are no second takes when the camera is rolling, no edits to erase what thousands have witnessed. From accidents to unthinkable misfortune, these are the 5 most chilling deaths ever caught live on camera. Real, raw, and unforgettable. It was September 14, 2020, in Aba, a remote Tibetan region in China's Sichuan province, when what started as an ordinary livestream turned into something no one could have imagined. Lamu, a 30-year-old Tibetan video blogger, wasn't just another influencer. She was beloved. With over 780,000 followers on Douyin, China's version of TikTok, she had captured hearts across the country. Her videos were simple, yet deeply comforting. Cooking traditional meals, singing folk songs, wandering through mountain fields, always dressed in colorful Tibetan clothes, always smiling. She never wore makeup, she didn't need to. Her authenticity was her beauty, but behind that bright smile, there was a painful secret. Lamu had been living through years of abuse. Her husband, Tang, had been violent and controlling. After enduring it for far too long, she finally found the courage to leave him. In June 2020, she divorced him, hoping it would be the start of a peaceful new chapter. But Tang couldn't let go. He stalked her, threatened her, and begged her to come back. Lamu stood her ground, unaware that his obsession would soon turn deadly. On the morning of September 14th, she uploaded what would be her final video, singing a traditional Tibetan song. Later that day, she went live again, chatting cheerfully with her fans, like she always did. Then, suddenly, the stream went dark. Viewers didn't realize what was happening. The Tang had just burst into her home, carrying a bucket of gasoline. Off camera, but still on live, he doused Lamu with the fuel and set her on fire. What followed were the chilling sounds of chaos, her screams, her pain, echoing through thousands of screens. Her followers watched in horror, powerless to stop it. Neighbors rushed in, putting out the flames and calling for help. Lamu was rushed to the hospital with burns over 90% of her body. For 2 long weeks, she fought to survive, but on September 30th, she passed away. Her death sent shockwaves through China and far beyond. Fans flooded her Douyin page with grief and outrage. Donations poured in to help her family. And soon after, Tang was arrested, convicted, and sentenced to death for his brutal crime. But Lamu's story revealed something even bigger, the harsh reality of domestic violence in China. Even though domestic abuse was officially outlawed in 2016, the system still fails many victims. The law doesn't cover unmarried partners or same-sex couples. It often overlooks emotional and psychological abuse. And in many rural areas, violence is still brushed off as a private family matter. Reports say Lamu had even reached out to authorities before, asking for protection. But her pleas were ignored, dismissed as family issues. That indifference cost her her life. To make things worse, China introduced a 30-day cooling-off period for couples before a divorce can be finalized, meant to stop impulsive breakups. But for victims of abuse, it can mean another month trapped in danger. A 2013 national survey found that 1 in 4 married women in China has experienced domestic violence, a number likely even higher in rural regions like Aba. After Lamu's death, her Douyin page transformed into a digital memorial. Her old videos, once symbols of joy and tradition, became powerful reminders of resilience, loss, and the need for change. Some local governments have since promised reforms, including tracking known abusers, but activists say it's not nearly enough. Lamu's life was full of light, love, and courage. Her death was a tragedy, but also a turning point. Her story still echoes online, urging a simple truth: no one should ever have to suffer in silence. It was January 27, 2021, in the small Russian town of Smolin. The evening felt quiet and ordinary until around 6 p.m., when a familiar face appeared on a controversial YouTube channel called First Step. That face belonged to 60-year-old Yuri Dushechkin, affectionately known by viewers as Grandpa. Yuri wasn't new to the channel. Over time, he had become one of its regulars, a kind, gentle presence whose warmth stood out amid the usual chaos of the show. But sadly, That night would be the last time anyone saw him alive. The live stream that evening had about 150 people watching. Like always, it followed the channel's infamous formula: dangerous dares, reckless drinking, and viewers sending donations to push the participants even further. The higher the stakes, the more money rolled in. But this time, things went horribly wrong. During the stream, Yuri was encouraged by both the host and the viewers to drink huge amounts of vodka, reportedly around 1.5 liters. As the broadcast went on, his condition began to deteriorate. His speech slurred, his movements slowed, and then, suddenly, he collapsed. The camera kept rolling. For a while, Yuri's motionless body stayed on screen as viewers watched. Some people in the chat grew alarmed, urging someone to call for help. Others brushed it off, assuming it was part of the act. When emergency responders finally arrived at the apartment on Udarov Street, it was already too late. Yuri was gone. The man behind the channel was a 39-year-old who went by the online alias JEA. His streams had built a reputation for what's known in Russia as trash streaming. These kinds of broadcasts prey on vulnerable people, often those struggling with addiction, poverty, or homelessness, and pressure them into humiliating or dangerous acts in exchange for donations. The more shocking the content, the more money it generated. Yuri had become a recognizable figure in this disturbing online world. He wasn't just a guest anymore. He was part of the show's identity, and with that came the constant pressure to keep pushing the limits. That night, the chaos of the stream, loud music, shouting, drunken laughter, masked how serious the situation really was. Yuri wasn't just tipsy, he was dying, and thousands of people were watching it happen in real time. Even after he collapsed, the donations and comments kept coming. Some viewers begged for help to be called, while others continued treating it like entertainment. When paramedics finally reached him, it was over. Early reports suggested he died from alcohol poisoning. Authorities immediately launched an investigation to determine exactly what happened and who should be held accountable. The public reaction was swift. The Russian Regional Investigative Committee opened a criminal case, accusing the stream's organizers of negligence leading to death. Neighbors later revealed they had complained many times about the noise, parties, and drunken chaos coming from that apartment, but nothing had ever changed. Even Russian Senator Alexei Pushkov spoke out after the tragedy. He condemned trash streams as a dangerous and exploitative trend and called for stricter laws to prevent such incidents. Yuri's death sent shockwaves across the online community and exposed the darker side of internet entertainment, a world where human dignity is traded for likes, views, and money. This wasn't just one tragic mistake, it was a wake-up call. Critics demanded that platforms like YouTube take stronger action against harmful content and do more to protect vulnerable people from being exploited on camera. As the investigation continued, one thing became painfully clear: the online culture that allowed this to happen, where suffering is turned into a spectacle for profit, has to change before more lives are lost. It was a warm summer evening in Quozhou, China, on July 20th, 2021. 23-year-old Xiao Qumei had just wrapped up another long shift at a construction site in Jiangxi province. Petite, confident, and always smiling, Xiao stood out in a job dominated by men. But what truly set her apart wasn't just her skill as a crane operator. It was how she shared her world from hundreds of feet in the air. Zhao had built a following of over 100,000 fans on Douyin, China's version of TikTok. Her videos showed life from the top of a construction crane, breathtaking views, precise movements, and snippets of her daily routine. She often danced, sang, and spoke to her audience with warmth and humor, showing that women could thrive in tough, male-driven industries. To her followers, she wasn't just an influencer, she was an inspiration. That evening, as the sun began to set, Xiao decided to film one last video before heading home. Most of her co-workers had already left for the day. The construction site was quiet, except for the hum of distant machinery. Around 5:40 p.m., she set up her phone, smiled into the camera, and began to dance and chat like she always did, cheerful and full of life. Then, in a single moment, everything changed. The video suddenly shook. Metal beams rushed past the frame. A sharp scream pierced the air. It was Xiao's. She had fallen from her crane nearly 160 feet to the ground below. Emergency responders arrived quickly, but it was too late. Xiao was pronounced dead at the scene. Early reports suggested she had been filming when she fell, claiming she was distracted by her phone. But her family firmly denied it. They said she was always careful and professional, and that her phone stayed in her bag during work hours. According to them, she slipped while climbing down from the crane. A tragic accident, not a careless mistake. News of her death spread rapidly across social media. Her fans were devastated. Just hours earlier, they had seen her smiling and dancing. Now, they were mourning her loss. Some even reposted her final moments online, sparking outrage and debate over whether such footage should be shared at all. Her family, heartbroken, held a private funeral. Following local tradition, her ashes were placed under a small umbrella on a table. Simple, quiet, and deeply symbolic. Authorities in Jiangshan City confirmed the incident and launched an investigation into whether safety regulations had been followed. No additional details were released, but her death renewed conversations about the risks of high-altitude work and the pressures of performing for social media. Xiao's rise to fame came from her authenticity. She didn't chase trends or fake perfection. She showed the reality of hard labor, sweat, effort, and pride. Off camera, she was a devoted mother of 2 young children, balancing family life with a demanding job. Her content reminded viewers that every towering building depended on people like her, dedicated workers often overlooked by society. Even though her family insisted her death wasn't related to social media, many drew comparisons to other tragic influencer deaths, like that of Instagram star Sophia Chung, who fell while taking a selfie near a waterfall. Xiao Xiumei's story became a haunting reminder of how fragile life can be. Her radiant spirit and determination inspired thousands, and her loss left a void that words can't fill. To her followers, she'll always be remembered as the fearless crane operator who turned an ordinary job into something extraordinary. One smile, one video, one breathtaking view at a time. It was May 16, 2024, in Suffolk, Virginia, a day that would end in unimaginable tragedy. 17-year-old Raleigh Freeman III, better known as Rio Huncho, was a rising rapper full of energy, ambition, and promise. With nearly 29,000 Instagram followers and a growing Spotify audience, he was starting to make his mark on the music scene. That evening, Rio decided to go live on Instagram from his home, just a casual stream to connect with fans. It was something he'd done plenty of times before, but this time, the live stream would take a devastating turn. During the broadcast, Rio picked up a handgun, something he'd shown off before in photos and videos to fit his rapper image. The gun had a green laser and flashlight attachment, and he handled it like a prop, joking and waving it around. At one point, he appeared to switch off the safety, pointed it toward his own head, made a bold remark, and pulled the trigger. A loud gunshot rang out. The phone dropped. The screen went black. Viewers were left frozen in disbelief. Some thought it was a prank or a dark performance stunt, but within minutes the truth came out. Rio had accidentally shot himself. Emergency responders arrived quickly and rushed him to the hospital, but it was too late. He was pronounced dead soon after. Police later confirmed the gunshot was accidental and self-inflicted. News of his death spread fast, devastating the local community and his growing fan base. Rio wasn't just an up-and-coming artist. He was a son, a student, and a friend. His mother, Monica Savage, who had raised him on her own, was shattered. In an emotional interview, she described the moment she found him and said she wished she could bring him back. Rio's cousin soon launched a GoFundMe to help cover funeral costs, sharing Monica's heartbreak and love for her only child. Support poured in from fans and strangers alike, showing just how many lives Rio had touched. At his high school, teachers and classmates mourned his loss. His teacher, Cara Dorsey, shared a heartfelt message encouraging students to honor Rio's memory by chasing their dreams. Days later, the community held a balloon release, bright colors rising into the sky, a tribute to a young life gone far too soon. His death also reignited a painful conversation about gun safety. Authorities began investigating how such a weapon ended up in his possession. Experts and community leaders stressed the importance of education, proper storage, and supervision, especially in homes with teenagers. A few simple safety steps, they said, can prevent tragedies like this. Rio's story became more than just a headline. It was a wake-up call about the dangers of treating firearms like props or symbols. Despite the tragedy, his music lives on. Songs like Money Getta and DOA showcase his raw talent, confidence, and drive. They're reminders of a young artist whose voice had only begun to be heard. Rio Huncho's life was full of potential, his future wide open. His accidental death stands as a heartbreaking reminder of how fragile life can be, and how one careless moment can change everything. It was July 14, 2024, in China, when 24-year-old Pan Xiaoting sat down for what would tragically become her final Mukbang livestream. Known for her jaw-dropping eating challenges, Pan had built a huge following online. Thousands of fans tuned in that day as she prepared to take on another record-breaking feat, consuming nearly 22 pounds of food, from fried chicken and seafood to chocolate cake piled high across her table. Pan's path to fame hadn't been easy. She started out as a waitress, struggling to get by. But everything changed when she discovered Mukbang, a viral trend that began in South Korea, where creators live-streamed themselves eating large meals while chatting with viewers. What started as a fun hobby soon became her ticket to stardom. Pan's natural charm, friendly humor, and fearless appetite quickly won her thousands of fans. Within a year, she quit her job and became a full-time content creator. To keep her momentum, Pan invested heavily in her channel, renting a studio, buying professional lighting, and building a dedicated setup. The payoff was massive. Live stream donations and virtual gifts poured in, and her follower count exploded. But behind the smiles and success, her lifestyle was taking a dangerous toll. As her fame grew, so did the pressure to outdo herself. Her eating challenges became more extreme, sometimes lasting 10 hours or more, with meal portions that would overwhelm anyone. Her parents begged her to slow down, terrified for her health. They warned her that no amount of money or fame was worth her life, but Pan brushed off their concerns, insisting she knew her limits. In truth, her body had already been breaking down. She had been hospitalized several times for internal bleeding and digestive issues, yet she kept returning to the camera, driven by the demands of her audience and her determination to keep her numbers high. On the day of her final stream, everything seemed normal at first. She smiled at the camera, greeted her fans, and dove into her mountain of food. Comments flooded in, cheers, jokes, virtual gifts. But as the hours passed, something shifted. Her energy faded. Her breathing grew heavy and she began to slow down. Concerned viewers noticed and begged her to stop. Still, Pan pushed herself to continue, determined to finish the challenge. Then, mid-stream, she suddenly collapsed. The chat erupted in panic. Fans pleaded for someone to help her. Emergency responders were called, but by the time they arrived, it was too late. Pan was pronounced dead at the scene. The autopsy revealed the horrifying truth. Her stomach had ruptured from the massive quantity of food, causing internal bleeding and fatal complications. Medical experts later explained that eating such enormous amounts can dangerously expand the stomach, restrict blood flow, and strain the heart. Pan's death reignited a fierce debate over mukbang culture. Originally meant to bring comfort to lonely viewers, the trend has morphed into a competition of excess. Despite China's 2021 ban on binge-eating content under its anti-food waste law, many creators, including Pan, continued to stream extreme eating sessions, driven by profit and popularity. Her passing left fans devastated and questioning how such risky content continues to thrive online. Pan Xiaoting's story is a heartbreaking reminder of the hidden dangers behind viral fame. A young woman full of ambition and heart who lost her life chasing the approval of millions. Her death stands as a sobering warning of how far the pressure to entertain can push someone and how deadly that pursuit can become.